Yura Natsuki, a 20-year-old hero, stands before the demon god Zephos. Without hesitation, he charges forward and delivers a devastating final slash, defeating the demon god once and for all. As the battle ends, emotion overwhelms him. After years of suffering, he is finally free. The nightmare is over, and he can finally return home to Earth. Back in Mukajima City, a student named Mihara approaches him and reveals that he has started dating a girl Yura once seemed interested in. Though the news hurts, Yura forces a smile. "Hey, congratulations." Not wanting to show his feelings, he quickly makes an excuse and leaves. As he walks through the familiar streets, relief slowly fills his heart. The supermarket, the local diner, and the buildings around him all confirm one thing: he is truly back in Mukajima. 6 years ago, Yura was summoned to another world. Instead of a fantasy adventure, he found a filthy and dangerous land where survival was a daily struggle. To save that world, he fought countless battles, defeating the 4 heavenly kings, the demon king, and finally the demon god Zephos. After years of hardship, he finally made it home. Even more surprising, he returned to the exact moment he was summoned. Though 6 years have passed for him, his body has reverted to that of a third-year junior high student. Determined not to lose his teenage years again, Yura remembers that his new clothes and sneakers are arriving today. He rushes home and sees his mother, Haruko. The sight of her brings tears to his eyes. After everything he endured, he has truly returned. Completely unaware of his journey, Haruko simply reminds him about his packages and household chores. Yura hurries to his room, opens the packages, and tries on his new clothes and sneakers. The comfort amazes him. After spending 6 years in a brutal world, even something this ordinary feels incredible. At that moment, Yura realizes something simple. To him, Earth is absolutely perfect. Compared to Earth, life in the other world was pure misery. Clothes were made from monster hides, beds were nothing more than wooden boards, winters were freezing, summers were unbearable, and proper baths didn't even exist. Yura can hardly believe he survived 6 years in such a place. Part of him wants to think it was all a dream, but the memories and sensations are far too vivid. The suffering was real, the battles were real, that nightmare world truly existed, and somehow he managed to escape it. Still, one question lingers in his mind. Even though he's convinced it won't work, Yura decides to test his magic. He casts a beginner spell called Crimson Flame. To his absolute shock, a massive crimson fireball instantly forms and blasts straight through the roof, triggering a huge explosion. Yura freezes. He can still use magic. Panicking at the sight of the destroyed roof, he quickly casts repair magic and restores everything before anyone notices. Unfortunately, his mother, Haruko, walks in moments later after hearing the noise. Thinking fast, Yura grabs a dumbbell and pretends he accidentally dropped it while training. Thankfully, Haruko accepts the explanation and simply tells him that dinner is ready. The moment she mentions curry, Yura's eyes light up with excitement. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Mukijima City, inside the Minazuki family's main residence, a woman kneels within a circle of candlelight. Suddenly, she senses something unusual. The 2 women kneeling behind her feel it as well. A powerful wave of magical energy spreads through the area, sending a chill down their spines. They immediately recognize it as an overwhelming and terrifying force. The woman leading the ritual concludes that it is the strongest magical presence she's ever felt, a power so immense that it likely belongs to a high-ranking demon. Although their group has defeated many demons in the human world before, this presence feels completely different, far beyond anything they faced. Realizing the danger, she orders everyone to remain cautious. Until they understand exactly what they're dealing with, nobody is to make a move. The next day, students fill the classroom with casual chatter, while Yura Natsuki sits at his desk playing a mobile game. He can't help but smile at how fun it is. After spending 6 years fighting real monsters, he much prefers battling them in a game. Real combat meant exhaustion, injuries, and the constant smell of blood. Compared to that, this peaceful school life feels almost unreal. For the first time in years, Yura realizes how precious an ordinary life truly is. Determined to enjoy his youth, he even starts thinking about getting a girlfriend. As the class talks, one student mentions that Yudo has started dating someone and that the girl is supposedly Sakurai No from Class F. The news quickly spreads through the classroom, shocking many of the girls. Since Yudo is Yudo's childhood friend, a classmate assumes he knows the details. However, Yura has little interest in the gossip. Before long, a female student approaches him and says she needs to speak with him about something important. The 2 move to a quieter location, and Yura begins wondering what she wants. For a moment, he even imagines that it might be a confession. Instead, the girl explains that she recently mistook a student for a monster. The comment leaves Yura completely confused. She then reveals that she belongs to the Minazuki division and is actually one of his classmates. Yura finally remembers the recent class shuffle and admits that he still hasn't learned everyone's names. As he waits for her explanation, the girl suddenly draws her sword and attacks. Yura effortlessly dodges the strike. Seeing his reaction, she remarks that the rumors about his abilities were true. While Yura struggles to understand what is happening, the girl finally explains herself. She reveals that the Minazuki family is a long line of spiritualists. For generations, they have secretly protected the world by fighting evil spirits, yokai, and demons. As a member of that family, she cannot ignore someone who possesses a dangerous amount of power. Fixing her gaze at Yura, she declares that a person with strength like his is too great a threat to leave unchecked. Therefore, she believes it is her duty to eliminate him. Yura is completely caught off guard by her declaration and immediately tries to leave. In his mind, it doesn't matter how cute she is, someone this crazy is impossible to deal with. The female student quickly activates a spell, causing several undead creatures to appear around her. They rush forward and latch tightly onto Yura's leg, preventing him from escaping. She calmly explains that she placed a powerful curse seal on him during her earlier attack. According to her, the curse is so strong that ordinary spiritual power cannot break it. Telling Yura to accept his fate, she charges forward and slashes at him with her sword. The impact sends Yura flying across the room and crashing hard into a wall. Watching him fall, she confidently declares that defeating him is far too easy. In her eyes, even high-level opponents are no match for her strength. But as she prepares to finish the battle, she suddenly freezes. Yura is standing again. Not only is he unharmed, but there isn't a single scratch on his body. Her eyes widen in disbelief. Meanwhile, Yura begins laughing as if the entire situation is a joke. After barely escaping the nightmare of another world, he finds it ridiculous that spiritualists are now causing him trouble the moment he returns home. As a powerful aura erupts from his body, the undead creatures clinging to his leg instantly burn away and disappear. The sight leaves the girl even more shocked. Yura's smile slowly fades, replaced by an expression of pure irritation. He declares that anyone who tries to ruin the peaceful life he finally earned will be crushed without mercy. Hearing those words, the girl becomes even more determined. Convinced that Yura is a dangerous demon, she decides to fight with her full strength. She throws aside the ordinary sword she had been using and draws the sacred blade passed down through her clan. Its name is Tsuyu Harai. Yura studies the weapon with interest. Rather than retreating, he decides to test it himself. After all, he wants to see just how strong the spiritualists of this world really are. The two face each other once again. The girl carefully studies Yura's stance and reluctantly admits that his swordsmanship is far from ordinary. In response, Yura calmly thinks that compared to the Demon King and the Demon God he defeated in the other world, her strength is insignificant. Those words leave her stunned. In that brief moment of distraction, Yura moves. With overwhelming speed, he closes the distance and delivers a powerful slash. The attack sends her crashing to the ground. The instant Yura realizes how badly he hurt her, panic sets in. He immediately casts healing magic and her injuries vanish in seconds, restoring her completely. Satisfied that she is no longer in danger, Yura decides to leave before she wakes up. If she starts another fight, he knows it will only create more problems. However, while Yura walks away, something unusual is happening elsewhere. In a distant, unknown location, an automated system suddenly detects an abnormal energy wave and issues a warning. At the same time, a mysterious winged woman stands atop a tall building, gazing toward the source of the disturbance. Observing the energy, she remarks that Earth possesses warriors far stronger than she expected. In fact, this world feels even more like a fantasy realm than the one she came from. Meanwhile, Yura can't stop thinking about the encounter with the Minazuki girl. After their battle, she never returns to class, which leaves him feeling uneasy. Her wounds should have been healed completely, yet there is still no sign of her. The more he thinks about it, the more frustrated he becomes. After finally returning home and hoping for a peaceful life, why did he have to run into a spiritualist? Lost in thought, Yura continues walking down the road. Suddenly, a group of people steps in front of him and blocks his path. Yura attempts to walk past them, but they immediately stop him. Then they issue a warning. If he refuses to cooperate, they are authorized to open fire. Realizing the group is completely serious, Yura stops in his tracks. The officers immediately order him to lie face down on the ground. Before the situation can escalate further, a man steps forward and tells the officers to leave Yura to him. The man introduces himself as Hisashi Aoyama, the chief of justice at the Mukojima police station. He explains that there are several things he needs to confirm with Yura. Caught completely off guard, Yura has no idea what is happening. Before he can make sense of the situation, the officers escort him directly to the police station. Once there, Hisashi takes a closer look at Yura's face and hears his full name. Almost immediately, his expression changes. He realizes that Yura is not the person they originally thought he was. Hisashi quickly apologizes for the rough treatment and admits that he had no idea Yura was involved. He also comments on how much Yura has grown over the years. At that moment, Yura finally remembers where he knows the man from. Hisashi is an old acquaintance of his mother. When Yura was younger, he often saw him as a friendly, uncle-like figure who occasionally visited their home. Apparently, Hisashi and Haruko were classmates in the past, though Yura never learned much about their relationship. As their conversation continues, a female officer walks out of one of the nearby rooms. Hisashi immediately introduces her as his daughter Ginko. He explains that she has been working as a police officer at the station for quite some time. Before Hisashi can continue, Yura cuts him off. With a serious expression, he makes it clear that he is not interested in personal introductions or family stories. What he wants to know is simple. Why was he arrested and brought to the station? Hearing the question, Hisashi's expression turns serious. He then asks Yura a single question. Does he know anything about spiritualists? The moment those words leave his mouth, Yura's expression stiffens and the room falls silent. Although Yura refuses to answer, Hisashi can easily read the reaction on his face. It is obvious that Yura knows about spiritualists. Hisashi then explains that spiritualists have existed in their world for countless generations. Over time, they became organized under a government-approved institute responsible for eliminating demons and dealing with humans who misuse spiritual powers. While ordinary citizens know little about these matters, the police have long been aware of demons and spirit users. Hisashi adds that the Special Disaster Division is sometimes involved in investigations and arrests whenever supernatural threats appear. Not long ago, the police received an anonymous report claiming that a powerful demon had suddenly emerged. As part of their investigation, they gathered evidence, including a photograph taken during the previous day's incident. The image shows a massive lightning-like burst of energy. According to Hisashi, numerous civilians witnessed the phenomenon, and multiple testimonies confirmed that the event was real. The moment Yura sees the photo, his heart sinks. He becomes both disappointed and nervous, realizing that far more people noticed the incident than he originally thought. Hisashi continues by explaining that the police analysis team traced the source of the abnormal energy. Every result led back to Yura. Because of that evidence, the authorities concluded that he was directly connected to the incident. Hisashi then reveals the police's official assessment. Based on the information they gathered, Yura has been classified as either an extremely dangerous demon or a human who has awakened an abnormal and potentially destructive spiritual ability. Fearing the damage he might cause, they decided to investigate and detain him before the situation could escalate. After hearing the entire explanation and seeing the evidence for himself, Yura realizes there's no point hiding the truth any longer. If he wants to clear his name, he must reveal the real source of the overwhelming aura. With that in mind, Yura decides to show Hisashi the weapon responsible for the energy surge. To prove his story, Yura pulls out his sword and places it on the table. The weapon is an enchanted blade known as the Chaos Edge, a trophy he obtained after defeating one of the 4 demon lords. The moment Hisashi and Ginko lay eyes on the sword, both of them freeze. A chilling aura radiates from the blade, sending an instinctive sense of fear through their bodies. Despite their reaction, Yura calmly begins explaining everything. He reveals that he was summoned to another world immediately after school one day. There, he was chosen as a hero and forced to fight demons, gods, and countless powerful enemies. Through years of battle, he acquired the incredible abilities he possesses today. That is why he can use powers far beyond those of ordinary humans. Yura also makes one thing clear. He is not a spiritualist. Everything he has came from another world. Unfortunately, Hisashi finds the story impossible to believe. To him, it sounds like an elaborate excuse created to avoid responsibility. Even after seeing the Chaos Edge and hearing the full explanation, he remains unconvinced. Ginkgo, however, reacts completely differently. Rather than feeling intimidated, she becomes fascinated by the sword. The more she looks at it, the more she admires its beauty and power. Before her father can stop her, she reaches out and grabs the Chaos Edge from Yura. Almost immediately, she starts talking to the sword as if it were a living partner. She even begins thinking of nicknames for it, treating the weapon like a precious treasure. Watching her behavior leaves everyone else speechless. Eventually, Hisashi steers the conversation back to the main issue. He warns Yuta to stay out of trouble from now on. If another large-scale incident occurs, or if Yuta attracts too much attention, there may come a point where the police can no longer help him. Understanding the seriousness of the warning, Yuta agrees to keep a low profile and avoid causing any more disturbances. Yura assures Hisashi that he has no desire to fight anymore. After everything he endured in the other world, all he wants now is a normal life. He plans to spend his days watching movies, playing games, and enjoying the peaceful lifestyle he worked so hard to regain. Satisfied with his answer, Hisashi allows him to leave the station. Before departing, Yura asks one final question. He wonders whether Hisashi himself is a spirit user. Hisashi simply shakes his head and explains that he is not. According to him, he is just an ordinary citizen with no special powers. Meanwhile, at the Minazuki family's main residence, Miyako, the girl who previously attacked Yura, is being scolded by her mother. Her mother harshly reprimands her for starting a fight despite being ordered to observe and gather information. Lowering her head, Miyako apologizes and desperately asks for another chance to confront Yura. However, her request is rejected immediately. Her mother warns that Yura is far beyond the level a beginner like her can handle. She tells Miyako to learn her limits before getting herself seriously hurt. Rather than sending Miyako again, her mother assigns a task to Mio, Miyako's older sister. Known for her skill, experience, and sense of responsibility, Mio is considered far more suitable for handling the situation. Her mother cautions her to proceed carefully, and Mio accepts the assignment without hesitation. The following day, Yura walks down the street while repeatedly yawning. His thoughts drift back to his recent arrest. Even though he knew he had done nothing wrong, the entire experience still leaves a bitter taste in his mouth. After all, he considers himself a peaceful and law-abiding citizen who only wants to enjoy a quiet life. As he continues grumbling to himself, a sudden feeling makes him stop. Someone is watching him. Yura immediately turns around, trying to locate the source of the presence, but before he can identify who it is, an arrow suddenly shoots toward him at incredible speed. Without even thinking, Yura reacts instantly and catches the arrow in midair. As Yura examines the arrow he caught, he notices a talisman attached to its shaft. A moment later, Mio steps out from a nearby hiding place and reveals herself. She explains that the talisman is a sealing charm designed to block his ability to use magic. Yura quickly understands the situation and asks who she is. Mio introduces herself as Miyako's older sister, immediately making her intentions clear. Realizing another confrontation is about to begin, Yura considers ending the fight as quickly as possible. However, he suddenly remembers the promise he made to Hisashi to stay out of trouble and avoid unnecessary conflicts. The memory causes him to hesitate. After everything he suffered in the other world, Yura cannot help but wonder why he keeps getting dragged into battles. All he wants is a peaceful and ordinary life. Determined to avoid violence, Yura tries to reason with Mio. Yura tells her that fighting only creates more hatred and never solves anything. Unfortunately, Mio refuses to listen. Confident that the sealing charm has completely suppressed his magic, Yura is now powerless. Without another word, she charges forward. Yura raises a hand, trying to stop her, but Mio ignores him and unleashes her family's martial technique, the Twin Dragon Strike. Her attacks come one after another with incredible speed and precision, forcing Yura onto the defensive. As the relentless assault continues, Yura realizes he has no choice. To protect himself, he channels his power and shatters the sealing charm. The talisman's magic is instantly destroyed. A powerful burst of energy erupts outward, tearing through the surrounding area and leaving Mio's clothing badly damaged. Despite this, Mio remains calm. She admits that she expected Yura to break the seal eventually. Given the overwhelming power he possesses, the result does not surprise her. Meanwhile, Yura stares at her in confusion, unable to understand how her clothes ended up in such a state. Mio simply brushes off the matter and insists that she's perfectly fine. Rather than worrying about her appearance, Mio steps forward and tells Yura that she has an urgent and important request. After calming herself, she apologizes for her earlier actions and admits that she only challenged him because she wanted to see his true strength with her own eyes. Just as she is about to explain further, Yura raises his hand and casts Water of Restoration. A gentle blue light surrounds Mio, and her damaged outfit is instantly restored to normal. Yura casually remarks that the details may not be perfect, but it is still better than leaving things as they were. Once that is taken care of, he reminds her that he promised someone he would stay out of trouble. He has no interest in getting involved with spiritualists any longer and decides the conversation should end there. Turning around, Yura starts to walk away. However, Mio quickly stops him and hands him a sealed envelope. She explains that it contains compensation from the Minazuki family for the trouble Miyako caused. The moment Yura sees the money, his attitude changes immediately. Suddenly becoming much more cooperative, he agrees to hear what she has to say. Mio then explains the real reason she approached him. The Minazuki family wishes to formally invite him. She reveals that the head of the Minazuki family, her mother, has taken a great interest in Yura and wishes to meet him personally. After listening to the explanation, Yura calmly acknowledges the proposal and considers what to do next. Before leaving, Mio informs Yura that she will return once the Minazuki family decides on a date for his visit. Before departing, she pauses and asks him an important question. How much of his strength did he actually use during their earlier fight? Yura casually estimates that he only used around 10 to 20% of his power and wasn't even close to using his full strength. Hearing that answer leaves Mio stunned. She silently admits that Yura's power is far beyond anything she had imagined. As she turns to leave, Mio offers one final remark. Even with all his strength, she believes there is still at least one person he may not be able to defeat. Later, back at the Minazuki family's main residence, Mio reports everything to her mother. She explains that she successfully met with Yura and that he agreed to visit the family. Her mother praises her for handling the situation well, and then asks for her personal impression of him. Mio thinks for a moment before answering. According to her, Yura is unbelievably powerful, yet his personality and behavior feel completely ordinary. If she didn't know better, she would think he was just a normal middle school boy. Her mother listens carefully and remarks that Yura is truly a mysterious child. She cannot understand how someone who appears so ordinary could possess such extraordinary power. Reflecting on everything she's learned, the family head concludes that Yura may be powerful enough to destroy the entire Minazuki family if he ever wished to do so. At the same time, she also recognizes that someone like him could become a valuable ally. Meanwhile, back at school, classes come to an end. Students who are not participating in club activities are instructed to head home, and Yura stands by his locker preparing to leave. His thoughts drift back to the conversation he had with Mio. However, as he tries to remember the details, he realizes that he became so excited by the compensation money that he stopped paying attention halfway through her explanation. Deciding not to worry about it, Yura starts thinking about buying something delicious on the way home. Before he can leave, his thoughts are interrupted when his childhood friend Yuto suddenly calls out to him. Yuto suddenly apologizes to Yura, admitting that he completely messed up when it came to Noah. He knows Yura once had feelings for her, but while trying to get closer to her himself, things unexpectedly progress into a relationship. Feeling guilty, Yuto reflects on their long friendship. He remembers meeting Yura back in kindergarten when Yura shared his crayons after he forgot his own. Since then, Yuto feels that he has always been taking things from him. New games, manga, a bicycle, and now even the girl Yura liked. With a serious expression, Yuto admits that he truly regrets what happened. He never intended to hurt Yura and understands why he would be angry. Hoping to make things right, he sincerely asks for forgiveness. To his surprise, Yura barely reacts. In his mind, the entire situation feels insignificant. He calmly tells Yuto that it is fine and admits that he hardly even remembers those incidents anymore. Yuto is left speechless. He insists that Yura does not need to act tough and points out that the old Yura would have already broken down in tears and run away after such a betrayal. Hearing that, Yura pauses for a moment. He wonders if he was really like that before being summoned to the other world because he can barely remember. After all, compared to what he experienced there, this situation feels insignificant. In that harsh world, betrayal was an everyday occurrence. People lied, stole, manipulated one another, and fought for power. Some of the very allies who once fought beside him eventually joined the Demon King's army and tried to kill him. Compared to those experiences, a school romance feels almost peaceful. As their conversation comes to an end, Yuto extends his hand in friendship, hoping to reconcile. Yura accepts the gesture, but the moment their hands touch, he senses something strange. A faint surge of mana flows from Yuto's body. Yura's expression immediately changes. Until now, he believed he was the only person on Earth possessing supernatural power. This brief contact proves otherwise. The presence of spiritual energy shocks him and confirms that there are others in this world with abilities far beyond those of ordinary humans. As Yura walks home, his thoughts drift back to the strange power he sensed from Yuto earlier. The energy felt different from anything he had encountered on Earth before. It possessed an almost magical quality, making him wonder how much of this world was truly ordinary and how much remained hidden beneath the surface. The thought lingers in his mind as he walks through the quiet streets. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls out to him. A young girl named Ayakawa An appears from the side and immediately greets him as Big Brother. The energetic 13-year-old smiles brightly and explains that it has been a long time since they last met. She then asks if he has a moment to talk. Yura barely glances at her and continues walking. Unwilling to give up, An calls after him again, urging him not to ignore her. This time, Yura stops and slowly turns around. Confused, he asks if she is really talking to him. An nods and explains that she wanted to apologize for the way she treated him in the past, and she also admits that she still likes him and hopes they can get along again. Unfortunately for her, Yura is immediately suspicious. Rather than believing her story, he assumes she's running some kind of scam. In his mind, she is probably about to claim that they are long-lost siblings before asking him for money. Without hesitation, he dismisses her explanation and coldly tells her to try that trick on someone else. Then he walks away. As far as Yura is concerned, the best way to deal with scammers is to ignore them completely. Eventually, they give up and move on to another target. Or at least that is what he expects. The next morning, An appears again. This time, she approaches him at school with the same bright smile as before. Lightly scolding him, she complains that he is late and claims that she has been waiting for him for nearly 20 minutes. The sight of her leaves Yura wondering why she is still following him. An refuses to give up on reconnecting with Yura. At school, she even reaches up and fixes his messy hair, acting as though they have always been close. Yura barely reacts, but his patience is starting to wear thin. Later that afternoon, An surprises him with a homemade lunch. She insists that living on sweetbread alone is unhealthy and that he needs proper nutrition. Determined to help, she carefully prepares several of his favorite foods and happily presents them to him. Even after classes end, her efforts continue. When she rushes to Yura's classroom, she discovers that he has already left. Rather than giving up, she immediately heads after him, determined not to let him go home without noticing her. Meanwhile, Yura is becoming increasingly suspicious. As he walks down the road, he starts wondering if An is actually after the money he recently received from Mio. The thought irritates him. He had already decided to spend that money on a new bicycle, and there is no chance he's handing it over to anyone else. That night, around 11:30 p.m., Yura is fast asleep in his room. Suddenly, he senses movement. His eyes snap open and he's shocked to find An standing inside his room. Startled, Yura immediately demands an explanation. Why has she been following him since yesterday? And more importantly, how did she get into his house? Suspicious, he asks if she's some kind of burglar. An quickly denies the accusation. She explains that she entered using a spare key and tells him to stop pretending that he doesn't remember her. According to An, they once lived together, so it was only natural for her to have had a key to the house. To prove her story, she pulls out an old photograph. The picture shows the two of them as children standing together alongside their parents. As Yura studies the photo, forgotten memories begin to return. He slowly remembers that his father and An's mother had remarried in the past, causing their families to live together for a period of time. An then continues explaining her side of the story, revealing that she has always cared deeply about him and never forgot the time they spent together. Although they were never related by blood, Yura and Ayakawa An grew up together like real siblings and shared a close bond. An then reveals what changed everything. According to her, the moment she met Yuto, she became completely obsessed with him. She could hardly think about anyone else. Yura remembers that period well. To him, An's sudden fixation became more of a burden than anything else. The situation eventually grew so troublesome that their parents decided separating the families was the best solution, leading to their divorce. Even now, An blames Yuto for everything that happened. As if on cue, Yuto suddenly appears nearby, claiming that he was simply heading to a convenience store. The moment he notices Yuta and An together, he immediately suspects they are talking about him. An quickly steps in front of Yuta and warns Yuto not to come any closer. She accuses him of destroying her family and insists that everything that happened was his fault. Yuta's expression darkens. Without hesitation, he grabs Yuta by the collar and accuses him of manipulating An behind the scenes. In his eyes, Yuta must have filled her head with lies in an attempt to turn her against him. Yuta immediately denies the accusation and insists that he did nothing of the sort. Seeing the situation escalate, An steps forward protectively. She warns Yuto to back off, declaring that if he hurts her brother, she will never forgive him. However, Yuto ignores her warning. Instead, he insists that Yuta is simply jealous. Throughout the argument, Yuta remains unusually calm. Rather than focusing on the accusations, he finds himself wondering why Yuto is even out this late at night. Then, a realization suddenly strikes him. The strange mana he sensed earlier begins to make sense. Yura's power appears to be a type of charm magic, a supernatural ability capable of influencing the thoughts and actions of those around him. As Yura analyzes the situation, he recalls a similar power from the other world. One of the 4 heavenly kings possessed an ability much like this. That individual had used charm magic to dominate an entire kingdom, bending the king, his ministers, and countless citizens to his will. As Yura thinks things through, he finally begins to understand what is happening. An's obsession with Yuto may not be entirely natural. A portion of it appears to be the result of Yuto's charm ability. However, Yura also notices that the effect seems weaker than before. Perhaps the spell has started breaking down now that Yuto has a girlfriend. Before he can think any further, Yuto suddenly loses his temper and throws a punch at Yura. He angrily shouts that he has always treated Yura kindly because they were childhood friends. That is the final straw. Yura's patience snaps. Reacting instantly, he delivers a swift kick that drops Yuto to the ground in pain. While Yuto is doubled over, Yura takes the opportunity to step away from the situation. He then turns to An and casually tells her to deal with Yuto while he sorts out his own thoughts. As he walks away, Yura reflects on all the strange people he has encountered since returning home. First came the spiritualist sisters, then a boy capable of using powerful charm magic. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that Earth is far less ordinary than he once believed. Trouble seems to find him no matter where he goes. Because of that, Yura makes a firm decision. No matter what happens, he will protect the peaceful life he fought so hard to regain. Yet despite that determination, a feeling of unease remains. Deep down, Yura knows that new problems are already beginning to emerge. Meanwhile, in Mukejima Island's busy shopping district, Yura sits on a bench enjoying a hamburger. The moment he takes a bite, his eyes light up. To him, the person who invented hamburgers must be an absolute genius. Every bite fills him with satisfaction, and he eats with such enthusiasm that nearby pedestrians cannot help staring at him in confusion. As he enjoys the meal, his thoughts drift back to the other world. Compared to Earth food, the meals there were bland, unpleasant, and sometimes barely edible. After surviving 6 years of that, even a simple hamburger feels like a luxury beyond imagination. The contrast reminds Yura just how much he missed the simple pleasures of Earth. After finishing his hamburger, he spends some time wandering through the busy streets, enjoying the freedom of having a day off. The warm afternoon sun, the lively atmosphere, and the ordinary sights around him all make him appreciate the peaceful life he finally regained. For once, everything feels normal. Then the atmosphere suddenly changes. A strange pressure fills the air and the space around him begins to distort. Yura immediately senses that something is wrong. The presence approaching him feels completely different from anything he has encountered before. Suddenly, a voice echoes directly inside his mind. The mysterious speaker formally greets him and refers to him as a life form of Earth. Startled, Yura quickly looks around. What appears before him is clearly not human. The being calmly introduces itself as an alien from a distant planet. Yura's first instinct is to run. He had already accepted the existence of other worlds, demons, and spiritual powers, but aliens are a completely different matter. This is one absurd development too many. However, he soon discovers that escape is impossible. An invisible barrier surrounds the area, sealing everything inside. The alien explains that they are currently inside a separate dimensional space, a special realm isolated from the outside world. Realizing he is trapped, Yura immediately begins gathering magical power. If the alien wants a fight, he is prepared to break through the barrier by force. Before he can act, however, the alien raises a hand and quickly stops him. According to the alien, there is no intention to fight. Instead, he simply wishes to ask Yura for a favor. Although still wary, Yura hesitates and decides to listen. Then the alien reveals someone standing beside him. It is his fiancée, Nancy. The alien explains that he and Nancy have been connected since childhood and recently became engaged. Wanting to spend some peaceful time together before their wedding, they travel to Earth for a special pre-marriage trip. Unfortunately, their visit ended in disaster. According to Jack, Nancy was suddenly captured by a group of humans living in the city. Among them was an individual possessing mysterious powers. Jack himself only managed to escape because a passerby intervened at the right moment. However, Nancy was taken away, leaving him desperate and alone. While searching for a way to save her, he sensed Yura's overwhelming power and became convinced that Yura was the only person capable of rescuing her. As Yura listens to the story, he cannot help remembering the science fiction movies he loved before being summoned to another world. From major blockbusters to low-budget B-movies, he watched them all. Now, standing face-to-face with an alien asking for help, the situation feels exactly like one of those stories he used to enjoy. For the first time since the conversation began, Yura smiles. Without much hesitation, he agrees to help. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the alien asks for his name. After Yura introduces himself, the alien proudly responds with his full name: Jack Landock Jasper Williamson Chamber Hanamaki. Yura stares at him for a moment before bluntly commenting that the name is way too long. Sometime later, high above Mukujima City, Yura flies through the sky on his bicycle. The wind rushes past as the city stretches out below them. Meanwhile, Jack sits awkwardly in the front basket, holding on for dear life. Impressed, Jack comments on Yura's ability to fly. At the same time, he complains that traveling in the basket is cramped and incredibly uncomfortable. Yura simply grins. He points out that Jack is an alien. If he walked around on the ground, he would attract far too much attention. Besides, Yura jokingly adds that aliens ride bicycles, they always sit in the front basket. Jack can only sigh at the ridiculous logic. After a brief silence, he turns toward Yura and asks an important question. Does Yura actually know where Nancy is being held? Yura confidently nods when Jack asks if he knows where Nancy is. Jack explains that he has been tracking a faint signal emitted by a device hidden inside Nancy's body. Following the signal led them to an old, isolated facility located roughly 7 kilometers away. Inside the building, Nancy is restrained on a bed while the president of the Unidentified Creature Research Society, Hiroshi Mirai, stares at her with satisfaction. At long last, he believes they have found proof of real extraterrestrial life. One of his subordinates excitedly comments about how much money they could make from the discovery. However, Hiroshi immediately corrects him. According to him, wealth is not their objective. Their true goal is research. He proudly declares that they will study Nancy's biology from top to bottom and carve their names into scientific history. Unfortunately for them, their speech is cut short. Without warning, Yura bursts straight through the wall on his bicycle. The impact sends Hiroshi flying across the room and crashing into the opposite wall. Yura quickly notices that his bicycle has been damaged in the collision, but there is no time to worry about that now. Several guards immediately rush toward him. Yura responds on instinct. He drives an elbow into one man's stomach, sending him crashing backward, then flicks a small pebble at another who tries to flee. Furious, Yura demands to know why they kidnapped an innocent alien. He loudly declares that as a lifelong science fiction fan, he will never forgive anyone who ruins a potential friendship with extraterrestrials. Within moments, the remaining security personnel are defeated, clearing a path for Jack. Just when it seems they are about to escape, a lone figure steps forward and blocks the exit, a man wearing dark sunglasses. The moment Jack sees him, his expression changes. He urgently warns Yura to be careful. This is the same man who originally captured Nancy. The stranger slowly removes his sunglasses, revealing a pair of sharp eyes, glowing with an unnatural light. His gaze locks onto Yura. Without saying a word, he activates a spell known as paralysis chaining. Instantly, invisible chains surge toward Yura, attempting to bind his body and rob him of all movement. Yura immediately realizes that the man is a psychic. The ability he used is designed to paralyze anyone who meets his gaze, freezing them in place and leaving them completely helpless. The psychic smirks confidently. He admits that he is considered a rogue and an outcast among other psychics, but he does not care. As long as the payment is good enough, he is willing to do anything. Crime, kidnapping, even capturing aliens. None of it bothers him. Certain that victory is already his, he declares that neither Yura nor the aliens will be leaving alive. Yura, however, remains completely calm. Without the slightest hint of panic, he channels his magical power. In the next instant, the invisible chains shatter. The paralysis spell collapses, dissolving into nothingness. The psychic stumbles backward in disbelief. Before he can react, Yura turns toward Jack and Nancy. He orders them to leave immediately and promises that he will catch up afterward. Enraged, the psychic rushes forward in an attempt to stop them. Yura responds with a single punch. The blow lands squarely on the man's face and launches him across the room into a wall. As the psychic collapses, Yura furiously declares that he will never forgive him. Not only did the man terrorize Nancy through her kidnapping, but he also damaged his mother's bicycle. And that offense is still fresh in Yura's mind. Desperate, the psychic tries to justify himself. He claims that aliens are descendants of gods, and that the divine realm spoken of in ancient legends is actually outer space. According to him, studying beings like Nancy could provide humanity with proof of the existence of gods. Yura is completely unimpressed. He has already stopped listening. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy erupts through the facility. The shockwave tears through multiple walls and sends debris flying in every direction. A moment later, a winged woman descends gracefully from above. Her presence radiates overwhelming power. Looking down at Yura, she comments with obvious disappointment. She had expected someone far stronger. Instead, she claims that Yura has failed to meet her expectations. Every word drips with confidence. Without hesitation, she boldly declares herself the strongest. Meanwhile, Yura glances down at the unconscious psychic lying at his feet. Then he notices the torn remains of his brand new clothes. Rather than focusing on the intimidating newcomer, Yura sighs in annoyance. All he can think about is the unnecessary damage to yet another outfit. The winged woman smiles faintly, clearly intrigued by the situation. With amusement in her voice, she remarks that things are finally becoming interesting, and hints that she might enjoy playing with Yura for a while. Meanwhile, Yura analyzes the attack that struck him earlier. What troubles him is not the power behind it, but the fact that it arrived so suddenly and silently that he never sensed it until it connected. Someone capable of launching an attack like that must have a reason for targeting him. Wanting answers, Yura turns toward the winged woman and asks why she's treating him like a sworn enemy. The woman coldly replies that she will explain her reasons only moments before killing him. Then she reveals her identity. Her name is Lucifer. She claims to be an angel sent from the divine realm, descending into the mortal world for a single purpose: to exterminate demons wherever they exist. Unfortunately for Yura, she has already decided that he is one of them. No matter how many times he insists otherwise, Lucifer refuses to listen. To her, the verdict has already been decided. Without warning, she launches herself forward and throws a powerful punch. Yura reacts instantly and blocks the attack. For a brief moment, Lucifer appears surprised that he managed to stop it. However, the surprise quickly fades. Believing him to be nothing more than a minor opponent, she increases the pressure and drives him backward with overwhelming force. The impact sends Yura crashing through multiple walls. Before he can recover, Lucifer follows up with a massive energy blast. The attack engulfs the area in a violent explosion, shaking the entire facility. As dust and debris fill the air, Lucifer begins laughing excitedly. Certain that victory is hers, she gazes over the destruction and wonders if she might have gone too far. Perhaps she completely erased him without leaving a trace. But moments later, her smile fades. A figure slowly emerges from the smoke. Bruised and covered in dust, Yura steps forward. Despite everything, he is still standing. Yura admits that Lucifer's speed and power are impressive. In fact, it has been a very long time since anyone managed to make him feel even the slightest pain. However, after examining the damage, he realizes that her devastating attack only left a shallow scratch on his skin. The revelation leaves Lucifer completely stunned. Yura, meanwhile, studies her more carefully. After witnessing her abilities and hearing her claim to be an angel named Lucifer, he concludes that she is clearly not human. What irritates him even more is the way she talks about humans, as though they are beneath her. At that moment, Yura abandons his earlier assumption that she might simply be another psychic. She is something far beyond that, and because of that, he decides there is no reason to continue holding back. Lucifer immediately charges forward again with terrifying speed. In the blink of an eye, she vanishes from sight and reappears directly behind him. But Yura reacts just as quickly. Without even turning around, he delivers a powerful back kick. The strike slams into Lucifer and sends her crashing violently into a nearby building. Before she can process what happened, Yura is already moving. He closes the distance instantly and drives a heavy punch into her stomach. The impact launches her skyward like a missile. She smashes through multiple floors of the building as she is sent soaring upward. As Lucifer struggles to regain control, disbelief fills her mind. She cannot understand how Yura possesses such overwhelming strength. Moments later, Yura rises into the sky after her. Watching her struggle to stabilize herself, he recalls her introduction. She called herself an angel, more specifically, Lucifer. Comparing her strength to opponents from the other world, Yura concludes that she is roughly on the level of one of the Demon King's 4 heavenly kings, and in his opinion, someone of that caliber has no business challenging him. After everything he has survived, the difference between them is simply too great. As far as Yura is concerned, Lucifer is about 50,000 years too early to stand on equal ground with him. Fury begins to consume Lucifer as she prepares to retaliate. Unfortunately for her, Yura has no intention of giving her that opportunity. Without wasting a second, Yura summons the Sword of Eternal Darkness. A massive amount of power gathers around the blade as he directs its energy toward Lucifer. Meanwhile, far below, chaos begins spreading outside the facility. A police officer rushes over to Ginkgo and urgently reports that the Special Disaster Division has detected an enormous energy surge coming from the building. According to their readings, the source can only be one of two things: a powerful demon or a human possessing extraordinary spiritual abilities. The officer admits that he is counting on Ginkgo's help. Unfortunately, Ginkgo knows the truth. The energy being released is so overwhelming that she would be completely helpless against whoever's responsible. Just hearing the explosions and feeling the shockwaves tells her that a battle far beyond ordinary spiritualists is taking place inside. Compared to that level of power, her own abilities feel insignificant. At that moment, a familiar voice suddenly calls out to them, "Jack." Both Ginkgo and the officer immediately turn toward the source. The moment Ginkgo sees him, she freezes. After all, it's not every day that an alien casually walks up and starts speaking fluent Japanese. Jack quickly reassures them that he means no harm. He then introduces himself using his ridiculously long full name, leaving everyone even more confused than before. After the awkward introduction, Jack explains the situation. He asks Ginkgo to protect the psychics and researchers inside the facility, the same people responsible for conducting illegal experiments. According to him, he has already incapacitated them, so they should not pose any immediate threat. Jack also casually mentions that he lent some of his power to Yura. However, Yura himself has not returned yet. The moment Ginkgo hears Yura's name, concern immediately appears on her face. She instinctively turns toward the facility. At that exact moment, a massive explosion erupts from within the building. The deafening blast shakes the surrounding area and sends debris flying into the air. High above the ruined structure, Yura watches the aftermath of his latest attack. As the smoke clears and the destruction becomes visible, Yura quietly admits to himself that he may have gone a little too far this time. Even so, Yura convinces himself that Lucifer should survive. After all, she insists that she is not human and even possesses wings. Someone like that should be able to endure an attack of that magnitude. Moments later, Lucifer slowly rises to her feet. Her movements are noticeably sluggish, and the pain from her injuries is impossible to hide. The sight only fuels her anger. In her mind, it is unforgivable that a mere demon could wound a noble being such as herself. Her fury intensifies until it completely consumes her. At that moment, Lucifer decides that she will kill Yura without mercy. A tremendous surge of power erupts from her body. The air itself begins to tremble as overwhelming energy floods the battlefield. Lucifer believes that a being of her status should never need to use this much strength against someone she considers insignificant. However, she views this as proper punishment for daring to injure her. Then a divine spear materializes in her hand. The weapon radiates a terrifying level of destructive power, far greater than any attack she has unleashed so far. Yura immediately notices the change. As he measures the energy gathering around the spear, his expression grows serious. By his estimation, Lucifer's current power exceeds even that of the Demon King, and may rival or surpass the demon god himself. More importantly, her next attack threatens everyone nearby. If that spear is unleashed, the surrounding area will be devastated and countless innocent people could lose their lives. Lucifer shows no concern for the danger. With the divine spear aimed directly at him, she launches herself forward at incredible speed. Yura quickly realizes that completely blocking an attack of that level is impossible. With little time to think, he gathers his strength and casts an intermediate tier spell. Black Raging Thunder. A massive surge of dark lightning bursts forward and strikes Lucifer head-on. The impact sends her hurtling through the sky. At the same moment, a violent explosion erupts from within the damaged facility. Cracks rapidly spread throughout the structure. The entire building begins collapsing under the strain of the battle. Below, Ginkgo watches the disaster unfold. Realizing the building is about to come down, she immediately shouts for everyone to evacuate. Without hesitation, she leads the escape as researchers, officers, and bystanders sprint away from the collapsing facility, while debris crashes down behind them. When the dust finally settles, Lucifer is left lying among the ruins. Her body is badly injured and she cannot even move. From where she has fallen, she stares at Yura in complete shock, struggling to understand what kind of existence he truly is. Meanwhile, Yura lets out a long sigh of relief. The tension slowly leaves his body as he assumes the battle is finally over. Then suddenly, blood dripped from his nose. A wave of dizziness hits him almost immediately. Yura quickly realizes what is happening. Although his mind and experience belong to a veteran hero, his body has reverted to that of a 14-year-old boy. Using an intermediate-level spell placed far more strain on him than he expected. In his current condition, wielding the holy sword is completely out of the question. While Yura struggles with the after effects, Lucifer remains furious. Still lying on the ground, she continues calling him a demon and refuses to accept her defeat. In her eyes, Yura has humiliated her again and again. Driven by pride, she activates her complete recovery ability. A warm glow surrounds her as her wounds begin closing, allowing her to force herself back onto her feet. However, Yura immediately notices a problem. Her wings are still badly burned. Lucifer notices it as well and attempts to heal them. Nothing happens. Again and again she tries to restore them, only to discover that her divine power has been completely exhausted. The realization hits her hard. Overwhelmed with frustration, she bursts into tears and immediately blames Yura for the situation. Yura, on the other hand, calmly explains the truth. He insists that he is not a demon, an evil spirit, or anything remotely similar. He is simply a normal human being. Lucifer flatly rejects the explanation. According to her, no ordinary human could possibly possess such overwhelming strength. The only conclusion she can accept is that Yura must be a demon disguised as a human. Determined to prove her theory, she steps closer and begins inspecting him herself. Then, to Yura's confusion, she leans in and sniffs him. A moment later, her expression changes. She can sense it clearly. Yura really is human. Rather than becoming more upset, Lucifer suddenly looks relieved. After all, as embarrassing as this defeat is, it is still far better than losing to a demon. After confirming that Yura is truly human, Lucifer finally calms down. Being defeated still frustrates her, but she finds it far more acceptable in knowing that her opponent was not a demon. Curious, she asks for his name. Once Yura introduces himself, Lucifer reveals the real reason she came to Earth. Her mission is to hunt demons. As an angel of the divine realm, she's forbidden from harming humans, which means she no longer can justify fighting him. Even so, there is one problem. Lucifer is known as the strongest angel in the divine realm, and her pride will not allow her to simply accept defeat at the hands of an ordinary human. Spreading her damaged wings as much as she can, she slowly rises into the air. Before leaving, she makes a promise to herself. One day, she will return and settle this fight properly. Lucifer points at Yura and warns him to be ready because their battle is far from over. With that declaration, she disappears into the sky. As soon as she's gone, Yura notices Ginkgo and several police officers nearby. Ginkgo calls out to him, still shaken by everything that has happened. Looking around, Yura finally takes in the full extent of the damage. The entire facility has been reduced to rubble. Honestly, even he is not completely sure how the situation escalated this far. His attention soon shifts elsewhere. Spotting Jack and Nancy nearby, Yura feels relieved to see that both aliens are safe. The couple immediately thanks him for rescuing them. Their gratitude is obvious, and they repeatedly express how much his help means to them. Watching the interaction, Ginkgo can only stare in amazement. The way Yura casually communicates with aliens from another world makes it seem as though such encounters are perfectly normal for him. To her, his ability to adapt to these situations feels almost unbelievable. After a moment, Yura turns back to Ginkgo. He reminds her that several people were involved in Nancy's kidnapping and asks what will happen to them. Ginkgo assures him that the police will conduct a full investigation and properly interrogate everyone responsible. Satisfied with the answer, Yura nods. He then casually asks her to take care of the cleanup efforts as well, trusting that she can handle the situation responsibly. With that settled, Yura looks back at Jack and Nancy. Now that they are finally safe, he becomes curious about one thing. What did the two aliens plan to do next? Jack and Nancy explained that they plan to remain on Earth for a while. For the time being, they intend to spend the night camping outdoors. Yura immediately rejects the idea. After everything that happened, he considers it far too dangerous. In his opinion, staying outside is just asking to get captured by another group of suspicious people. Instead, he insists that they come to his house. Part of the reason is concern for their safety, but Yura also admits that he wants to learn more about aliens and their civilization. Jack hesitates, saying that they have already caused enough trouble and do not want to impose any further imposition. Ginkgo joins the conversation and points out another problem.
If the aliens reveal their true forms, they could easily cause panic among ordinary people. She even offers to arrange protection for them if necessary. However, Jack and Nancy assure them that there is nothing to worry about. They explain that they have already gathered enough information about Earth's inhabitants. With that, the two aliens suddenly change shape. In an instant, they transform into the appearance of a perfectly ordinary human man and woman. Yura stares in amazement. Their disguises are flawless. Not only do they look completely human, but they also resemble an ideal couple and speak exactly like native residents of Earth. Seeing that the issue has been solved, Ginkgo offers to drive everyone to Yura's home. Before that, however, she asks them to stop by the police station briefly so a few formal procedures can be completed. Later that evening, the group finally arrives at Yura's house. The moment Yura steps through the door, his mother appears ready to scold him for returning home so late. That reaction lasts only a second. As soon as she notices Jack, Nancy, and Ginkgo standing behind him, her expression changes completely. Without hesitation, she welcomes everyone inside. Before long, the table is covered in sushi and a variety of seafood dishes. Ginkgo apologizes for intruding on their family dinner, but Yura's mother immediately reassures her. She explains that Ginkgo helped keep Yura safe and assisted during the kidnapping incident, making her an honored guest in the house. After encouraging everyone to eat as much as they like, she heads back to the kitchen to prepare even more food. As the meal begins, Jack quietly looks over at Nancy. He admits that the entire experience feels almost unreal. After everything they went through, he never expected to find himself enjoying such a peaceful and welcoming atmosphere on a distant planet. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Jack truly feels that coming here was the right decision. Yura's eyes light up the moment the conversation turns to space travel. The thought of riding in a real spaceship excites him more than he can hide. Without hesitation, he tells Jack and Nancy that he would love to board their spacecraft someday and experience traveling through space for himself. The alien couple smiles warmly at the request. They assure him that they would be more than happy to take him aboard if the opportunity arises. Watching the friendly exchange, Ginkgo cannot help but shake her head in amazement. She comments on Yura's incredible ability to communicate with others. Whether they are humans, psychics, or even aliens, he seems capable of becoming friendly with them almost immediately. Looking at Jack and Nancy, she wonders aloud how Yura managed to grow so close to them in such a short amount of time. Yura simply shrugs. According to him, the answer is obvious. Jack and Nancy are genuinely kind people. Compared to them, he says, some humans are far more troublesome. After all, there were people willing to kidnap innocent aliens and use them for research. The incident leaves Yura feeling that truly decent people are rarer than they should be. He then recalls another recent headache. As if alien kidnappers were not enough, his childhood friend suddenly turned out to possess strange psychic abilities. Ginkgo immediately understands who he's talking about. Yuto. She explains that the police keep track of individuals who possess magical or spiritual powers. At the moment, Yuto's abilities are classified as low risk, so the authorities have chosen not to interfere. Yura responds with visible frustration. In his opinion, the police are being far too relaxed about the situation. Then, Ginkgo becomes noticeably more serious. Changing the subject, she warns Yura about the Minazuki family. She explains that the Minazuki clan is one of the region's most influential psychic families and has protected the area for generations. However, troubling rumors have begun spreading recently. One of her colleagues once attempted to investigate the Minazuki estate. The attempt failed almost immediately. According to the report, the aura surrounding the mansion was so oppressive and unsettling that they couldn't even approach the property. The investigator eventually returned with a disturbing conclusion. Something unusual might be happening behind the walls of the Minazuki residence. Because of that, Ginkgo strongly advises Yura to stay away from the estate and avoid becoming involved with the family under any circumstances. At that moment, Yura's mother returns from the kitchen carrying several more dishes. Noticing the serious expressions around the table, she tilts her head in confusion and wonders why the atmosphere has suddenly become so heavy. Trying to lighten the mood, she offers everyone drinks and casually suggests serving alcohol. Ginkgo immediately declines, reminding her that she still has to drive. Yura's mother simply smiles and suggests that she stay the night instead. Yura agrees, pointing out that the next day is Sunday, so there is no reason to rush home. Despite the offer, Ginkgo politely refuses. She explains that her work does not stop just because it's the weekend. Meanwhile, at the Minazuki family's main residence, the family head, Kaya, issues an order. In a calm yet commanding voice, she instructs a young man named Hiragi to personally ensure that Yura attends the meeting scheduled for the following day. Hiragi respectfully acknowledges the command without hesitation. The next morning arrives peacefully. Jack and Nancy once again thank Yura for everything he has done for them. As they prepare to leave, they promise that next time they meet, they will invite him aboard their starship. Nearby, Ginkgo mentions that she will accompany them to the station before heading off herself. Curious, she asks the alien couple where they plan to go sightseeing next. To her surprise, they casually answer that they're thinking about visiting America for the day. Ginkgo quickly informs them that they will not be able to get there by train. As the conversation continues, Yura quietly mutters that he still wishes he could ride in a UFO someday. Then he pauses and reflects on everything that has happened recently. Aliens, angels, psychics, and another world. At this point, Earth feels far more like a fantasy world than he ever expected. Just then, a luxury car pulls up beside him. The door opens and a young man steps out. Introducing himself as Hiragi, he explains that he has come on behalf of the head of the Minazuki family. His purpose is simple. He has been sent to escort Yura to the family estate. Before Yura can object, Hiragi politely invites him into the vehicle. Sometime later, the two are traveling toward the Minazuki family's main residence. During the drive, Hiragi brings up the recent incidents involving Miyako and Mio. He admits that both sisters behaved rudely toward Yura, despite being members of the family. Because of that, he is genuinely grateful that Yura still accepted the invitation. Hiragi adds that Kaya will undoubtedly be pleased to learn that Yura chose to visit the estate in person. As the limousine continues toward the Minazuki estate, Yura suddenly remembers that Miyako had said something similar when she first invited him. For a moment, he considers coming up with an excuse to leave. After all, he had planned to spend the day shopping for a new bicycle. Then he remembers the generous compensation he already received from the Minazuki family. With that thought, abandoning the meeting becomes much harder. Glancing around the vehicle, Yura finally notices something he overlooked earlier. This is not an ordinary car. It is a limousine. Seeing his reaction, Hiragi politely informs him that refreshments have been prepared and that he is free to help himself to any drink he likes. Since he is already in a good mood, Yura decides to enjoy the ride and play along. Before long, they arrive at the Minazuki family's main residence. The moment he steps out of the limousine, Yura is impressed. The estate looks exactly like a traditional samurai mansion. As they walk through the grounds, Yura casually asks Hiragi whether she is a psychic or perhaps the older sister of the two girls he met before. Hiragi shakes her head. She explains that although she serves as an instructor in martial arts and spiritual techniques, she is ultimately just a servant of the family. Compared to someone as powerful as Yura, she considers herself nothing more than an insignificant subordinate. A short time later, Hiragi leads him into the Minazuki family's reception hall. Several members of the household are already seated inside. Upon entering, Hiragi formally announces Yura's arrival. The woman seated at the head of the room immediately welcomes him. Introducing herself as Minazuki Kaya, the head of the Minazuki family, she states that she has been looking forward to meeting him. Yura politely thanks her for the invitation before taking the offered seat. As he looks around the room, he can't help noticing the tense atmosphere. To him, it feels less like a formal meeting and more like a family gathering where everyone is carefully watching each other's reactions. Then, to Yura's complete surprise, Kaya suddenly bows deeply. She sincerely apologizes for the actions of the Minazuki family members who caused him trouble. Not stopping there, she asks Mio and Miyako to apologize as well. The two sisters immediately lower their heads and offer heartfelt apologies. The unexpected sight completely catches Yura off guard. Embarrassed by the situation, he quickly tells them that there is no need to worry about it anymore. He admits that he struck back during their encounters as well and reminds them that he already received compensation for the trouble. As far as he's concerned, the matter has already been settled. Kaya observes Yura quietly before offering her honest impression. She remarks that despite being only a third-year middle school student and the same age as Miyako, he's surprisingly composed. In her experience, people who gain great power at a young age often become arrogant and reckless. Yura, however, appears different. According to Kaya, he seems to possess the maturity and self-awareness expected of someone entrusted with immense power. After complimenting him, she asks the question everyone in the room wants answered. How did he obtain such extraordinary strength? The question immediately puts Yura on the spot. He remembers Hisashi's warning about keeping his true abilities hidden to avoid unnecessary trouble. Not wanting to explain the whole story about another world, heroes, and demon gods, Yura quickly invents an excuse. He casually claims that he simply woke up one morning with these abilities. Then, with a completely straight face, he adds that perhaps drinking soy milk every morning is the secret. The ridiculous answer earns mixed reactions. Miyako immediately loses her patience. She snaps at Yura, demanding that he stop joking around. Turning toward Miyako, she insists that Yura cannot be trusted and argues that he's dangerous. Before she can continue, Kaya sharply orders her daughter to watch her tongue. However, Miyako is not the only one who feels skeptical. An elderly woman seated among the family members suddenly speaks up. Her name is Unkai. Agreeing with Miyako, Unkai questions why the Minazuki family is treating a mere child with such caution. She explains that she's been observing Yura since he entered the room and has sensed no spiritual power from him whatsoever. To make matters worse, she views his casual attitude and frivolous answers as deeply disrespectful. Without warning, Unkai activates her spiritual power. She declares that if Yura truly proves to be a threat beyond the family's control, then it would be better to eliminate him immediately. The atmosphere instantly becomes tense. Several family members quickly tell her to stop. Even Kaya intervenes. In a firm voice, she reminds Unkai that Yura is an honored guest of the Minazuki family and that she will not tolerate such behavior. Unkai eventually backs down. Claiming that she understands her place, she ceases her hostility. However, she does not hide her opinion. According to Unkai, Yura already looks intimidated by her presence. To her, he's nothing more than a small-time boy unworthy of serious concern. She argues that Mio and Miyako lost simply because they lack experience, and that there's no reason for the family to fear him. As she speaks, several relatives begin nodding in agreement. Slowly, doubts begin spreading through the room. After all, it seems impossible that an ordinary middle school student could possess power equal to or even greater than that of a high-ranking demon.
While everyone continues arguing, Yura's attention drifts elsewhere. Instead of listening, he becomes oddly fixated on the strands of hair sticking out of Unkai's nostrils. He quietly wonders why no one else seems to notice them. A moment later, Unkai changes the subject. Turning to Kaya, she brings up the matter of the family's upcoming sacrifice. She argues that Miyako possesses the talent and spiritual power needed to become the next head of the Minazuki clan. Because of that, Unkai questions why Miyako has been chosen as a sacrifice. If someone must be offered, she insists it should be Mio instead. According to Unkai, Mio is a failure with no future other than becoming a sacrifice, especially since her father's origins remain unknown. Before the argument can continue, the clan advisor, San, interrupts. He firmly tells Unkai to stop, reminding her that the decision was made by the will of the entire clan. Furthermore, the declaration came directly from Her Highness, making it impossible to oppose. Unkai refuses to back down. She openly declares that she cannot accept the decision, leading to another heated exchange between the two elders. Seeing the discussion spiraling into an argument, Kaya quietly asks Yura to accompany her somewhere else. As they walk through the estate, Kaya apologizes for the uncomfortable scene earlier. Yura simply tells her not to worry about it. Curious about what he overheard, he asks what everyone meant by the sacrifice. Kaya takes a deep breath before explaining. For generations, the Minazuki family has worshipped and borrowed power from the local water deity. The god's name is Miyoshi. Thanks to Miyoshi's blessing, the land has long been protected from disasters and has enjoyed lasting prosperity. However, that blessing comes at a terrible cost. By absorbing the pollution and impurities of the land, Miyoshi has gradually lost control of its divine power. Instead, the once benevolent deity has begun bringing calamities upon the region. Floods, droughts, plagues, and malevolent spirits have all become increasingly common. To prevent those disasters, the Minazuki family offers human sacrifices. In the past, 5 young maidens were chosen to become sacrificial priestesses. Now, Miyako has been selected as the 6th. Seeing the shock on Yura's face, Kaya quietly remarks that he probably finds such a tradition difficult to accept in the modern world. Yura tells Kaya that he does not find the tradition strange. In reality, however, he thinks the exact opposite. His mind drifts back to the other world where he once rescued a young girl who had been chosen as a sacrifice for a dragon. Ironically, the girl ended up falling in love with the dragon during her captivity and became furious with Yura for saving her. The bizarre memory quickly passes as Yura notices they have wandered deep into the forest. Confused, he asks Kaya why they came all the way out there. Kaya calmly replies that there is something she wishes to ask of him. Without another word, she draws her sword.
She asks whether he would be willing to spar with her. Yura stares at her with complete confusion. A puzzled "huh?" escapes his mouth before he immediately refuses. Kaya, however, does not wait for his answer. Her expression remains perfectly calm as she suddenly launches forward. With years of training behind every movement, her blade slices through the air with incredible speed and precision. This is not an attack fueled by anger. It is a test. Yura barely manages to dodge in time. Twisting his body at the last possible moment, he narrowly avoids the blade before quickly creating some distance. A cold sweat runs down his face as he quietly mutters that it was far too close. Unlike Miyako or Mio, Kaya's attacks carry genuine skill. Her speed, timing, and precision force even someone who survived 6 years in another world to react seriously. Kaya gives him no time to recover. She immediately follows with a powerful overhead slash, bringing her sword down with both hands. Yura responds on instinct, avoiding the strike by the narrowest of margins. When the exchange finally ends, the two separate and face each other once more. Kaya lands gracefully and narrows her eyes, studying Yura more carefully than before. The brief exchange has changed her impression of him. At first, she believed he possessed power that surpassed even the gods. Yet now, standing right in front of him, she cannot sense even the slightest trace of that overwhelming energy. To her spiritual senses, Yura appears to be nothing more than an ordinary middle school boy. Yura remains silent. Deep down, however, he already knows the reason. He has been suppressing his magical power the entire time, and it seems he has hidden it well enough to fool even the head of the Minazuki family. Still unconvinced, Kaya raises a talisman and calmly invokes her spiritual power. Declaring that all must obey her command, she activates the spell. Yura's response is completely emotionless. Whatever. The talisman suddenly flashes with brilliant light. An instant later, the air behind Kaya tears open as a gigantic white fox spirit emerges. Its many tails whip through the air like a raging storm, while its enormous fangs gleam like sharpened blades. The sheer pressure of its presence makes the ground tremble. It is a powerful Shikigami fox spirit. Standing calmly before the enormous beast, Kaya draws her sword without showing the slightest hint of fear. The fox spirit attacks immediately. Caught off guard, Yura barely reacts in time. He leaps onto one of its massive tails and is carried forward by its momentum. His eyes widen in surprise as he instinctively shouts in shock. Even while desperately avoiding the attack, Yura cannot help but complaining. He loudly asks how this is supposed to count as a sparring match and wonders if anyone there has ever heard of a fair one-on-one fight. Meanwhile, Kaya watches calmly from a distance as if everything happening is perfectly normal. The next instant, she joins the battle herself. While Yura is busy dealing with the fox spirit, Kaya rushes in, launching a coordinated attack alongside her Shikigami. Yura spins around just in time and catches her sword with his bare hand. The blade grinds to a complete stop between his fingers as tiny fragments scatter from the impact. Kaya's eyes widen once again. For the second time, she watches him stop her sword without using any weapon at all. As Yura lands, he quietly winces. Although he blocked the strike, the impact still hurts. His body has returned to that of a 14-year-old, and while his magic remains overwhelming, his physical body still has its limits. He may be vastly stronger than everyone around him, but he is not invincible in this form. Before he can recover, the fox spirit seizes the opportunity. The massive Shikigami opens its jaws wide and lunges toward him. Caught off guard while exchanging blows with Kaya, Yura barely has time to mutter a curse. The massive fangs snap shut around him, swallowing him whole into the darkness of the fox spirit's mouth. The scene then shifts to a peaceful white shot of the Minazuki estate. A still pond, wooden walkways, and carefully maintained stone paths create an atmosphere of perfect tranquility. Inside the residence, however, an entirely different conflict is unfolding. The clan elders have gathered, and the tension in the room continues to rise. Inside the Minazuki residence, the discussion grows increasingly heated. Unkai once again voices her firm opposition to choosing Miyako as a next sacrifice. No matter how many times a decision is explained, she refuses to accept it. Another elder quietly admits that, deep down, many members of the clan likely feel the same way. The conversation then shifts toward Mio. One of the elders asks for her opinion. The room falls silent as every eye turns toward her. As Miyako's older sister, no one understands the meaning of this sacrifice better than she does. Mio remains calm, her expression unreadable, carrying the quiet burden of someone who has already accepted a painful reality. Just as she begins to answer, Miyako suddenly cuts her off. "Please don't interfere." She continues coldly, declaring that offering someone as worthless as Mio would only anger Lord Mizuchi. Mio instinctively reaches out to her sister, but Miyako immediately slaps her hand away. "Don't touch me." Her voice remains ice cold. "And don't get the wrong idea. I've never once thought of you as my sister." The harsh words leave the room speechless. A moment later, Miyako changes the subject and asks where their mother has gone. One of the family members explains that Gaia left earlier with Yura because she wanted to speak with him privately. Mio's expression darkens. She quietly mutters that no matter how strong he may be, Yura is still only... Before she can finish, Miyako interrupts once again. She declares that their mother has placed far too much faith in that man. Her blunt remark shocks everyone present. The clan elders exchange uneasy looks, unable to hide their disbelief. Then, without warning, an enormous wave of spiritual energy erupts from outside. The entire mansion trembles as the overwhelming pressure shakes the atmosphere, instantly drawing everyone's attention.
Outside, in the bamboo forest, Kaya calmly observes the aftermath of the attack. "Just as I expected," she murmurs. Then a trace of doubt crosses her face. Or was I mistaken? Seemingly satisfied, she turns toward the giant fox spirit. "Well done, you may return now." The fox spirit remains perfectly still. Seeing that it refuses to obey, Kaya's voice grows noticeably colder. "I said, return." Before she can finish, an enormous surge of dark energy erupts from within the fox spirit. The violent aura explodes outward, twisting through the forest with overwhelming force. Kaya's eyes widen. "Are you serious?" As the energy disperses, a lone figure stands atop the shattered ground. It is Yura. His clothes are torn, his breathing is heavy, and his fists are tightly clenched. Yet he remains standing without falling. Completely fed up, he grumbles to himself. "I was supposed to go shopping and then watch a movie today, damn it." Kaya quietly turns to face him. "That was splendid," she says with genuine admiration. Yura says nothing. Silence hangs between them for a moment. Then, to Yura's complete surprise, Kaya slowly kneels and lowers herself into a deep, formal bow.